Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit more serious than the typical videos I do, which is like makeup videos and stuff like that. Today we're going to be talking about skin whitening in Filipino culture, what we're going to talk about today and why skin whitening is so present in like the Asian culture and like why people want to be whiter and like lighter in skin color, you know. So we're going to be talking about that today. I did like a whole research paper on this, a whole 12 pages, my freshman year of college, by the way. I knew I had to like write these research papers, but I didn't know it was going to be so soon, but I got an A on it, so I would say
I'm pretty knowledged.
I will link all of the websites and like the books I've used down below. I dressed for the occasion too in my little white button down, even though I'm literally like wearing a bra. So the value of like skin color in the Philippines goes all the way back to American colonization, which like majority of the things do. And specifically with colonization, all pretty much started with the Spanish, but we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. So this colonization changed the Filipino mindset about their own skin color, and the Filipinos were made to like twist their understanding of what they find attractive, specifically lighter skinned individuals, and beyond just being lighter skinned, it's also a priority to have like a double eyelid and to have a very thin body shape, and that's what was like very much attractive in like the Filipino culture as well as like the other Asian cultures as well. The American colonizers created like many negative connotations to darker skin, from it being related to a lower class to them finding like darker skin to just be like plain out unattractive. These negative outlooks that these colonizers had during the mid 1500s to the 1900s were then ingrained into the Filipino ideology. This developed colorism within a Filipino community, and we'll talk about colorism a little bit later as well. This caused Filipinos to want to change their skin color in order to be seen as attractive, and all of the positive connotations that come along with having lighter skin. With this need to fit in with the Western ideology and standards, Filipinos go to drastic measures to lighten their skin, and this is where like the skin whitening industry and products come into play. So before talking about like the actual skin whitening itself, let's talk about just like a background of how it led up to that. Specifically, this video is going to be kind of split into parts about like the colonization itself, and then how it led up to the skin whitening products and all the different negative effects of those skin whitening products. So that'll be coming up a little bit later, but right now we're going to be talking about the colonization itself. So Filipinos were made slaves by the Spanish after they were colonized in the mid 1500s. They were mistreated and met with severe brutality in the hands of the Spanish. They were brought on the Spanish ship to be a part of the Manila Acapulco galleon trade. I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. And this trade was made between the Philippines and Mexico that consists of various goods like spices, cotton, jade, ivory, silk, and gold. Shortly after leaving Acapulco, Mexico, these Filipino slaves jumped the ship and swam to the nearest shore to escape from their Spanish masters. They landed in what is now called St. Malo, Louisiana in the mid 1700s, and were considered to be the first Asians on the US soil. They were on the US land before the United States were the United States. These Filipinos fled not to seek better opportunities, but to escape the colonization and oppression brought to them by Spain. But this didn't really work out because like this isn't really related to what we're talking about, but like in the US, they were treated almost not just as poorly, but very poorly as well. They were looked down upon, called savages, and just mistreated in general. They weren't like Filipinos weren't considered citizens, so they didn't have the same benefits as like the actual citizens that were in the US, they didn't have like the same protection as those that were citizens. People had signs out on their like doors saying like no Filipinos allowed, or like no brown skinned people allowed, all of that shit. It was just disgusting, really. And when they were finally made citizens, they were actually like US nationals. When they were made this, they had the ability to like work and live in the US legally, but they still weren't considered like actual citizens, so the whole like discrimination still continued. But jumping back to the Philippines, the Philippine-American War was starting in the 1899 and lasted until like 1902. Each side has like very much great number of casualties. Americans lost 10,000 soldiers along with $600 million, and the Philippines lost 16,000 soldiers and 200,000 civilians. When many Americans started like questioning American presence in the Philippines and why it was necessary, President McKinley, who was, the president at that time, tries to justify it by stating how Filipinos were uncivilized, uneducated, and needed to be Christianized. And then President McKinley argued that the Philippines needed to be colonized because they were savages who needed to be treated like children. And President McKinley tried to justify his actions by colonizing the Philippines in order to civilize and educate them, basically portraying themselves as saviors to the Philippines. This caused America to feel the need to systematically degrade and condemn Filipinos to rationalize their own wrongdoings in the Philippines. There is a picture online and in books about of this little propaganda that President McKinley was throwing out there, so I'll put it right here just to show you guys. Let's talk about this picture for a second. This picture shows President McKinley giving Filipino baby their first bath with education, which is shown on the brush, in a pool of civilization. This demonstrates that President McKinley thinks that Filipinos are uneducated and uncivilized. If Filipinos were civilized and educated, there will be no need for this baby to have their bath in civilization with the brush of education. This picture also shows the baby crying as if being educated and civilized causes the baby physical pain, and which basically puts into your mind that Filipinos don't want to be educated and don't want to be civilized because they're unrational and savages and stuff like that. And on the shore, you can tell that there were these two kids that are shown putting on clothes that resembled an American flag. One child is labeled Cuba and the other is Puerto Rico. This act of Cuba and Puerto Rico putting on the American flag clothing was to show that the two countries were colonized and that they were happy to be colonized because now they are civil and educated. These educated kids that were on the shore wore clothes and are lighter in skin tone in comparison to the baby. The baby's skin color is darker and its features are made more wild looking. The caption of this picture reads, "Oh, you dirty boy," which is directed at the baby. Since the picture is McKinley giving baby a bath, the caption makes it seem like the baby's skin color will turn lighter if it was educated and civilized. The way that the baby was drawn overall was to show the audience that the colonization was necessary because of the way that the baby is made to look, which is savage. And overall, the baby is drawn to have more dramatic and drastic features in comparison to the other two babies, as well as President McKinley, and which shows you they're weird, unnatural savages. The propaganda kind of ingrains that into the American mindset. And the Philippines was given independence in 1946. However, the U.S. military bases continued to exist on the Philippine soil until 1992. With a continued American presence on Philippine soil, their society was filled with messages that perpetuated American or Western ideals. English was still being used as a primary language in law, education, government, business, and science. This showed that Filipinos that speak English was the key to being educated and civilized. So you're like a kind of like a social class of sorts. The soldiers on the US military bases showed Filipinos that they couldn't protect their country and that they needed the US to be there for them to remain safe from harm. And the US economy was largely based on American colonization and required mainly outside sources to survive, mainly from like trade to other countries and stuff like that. This was meant to show that Filipinos can sustain this showed that Filipinos couldn't sustain themselves without help from the US. There was also strong preference for lighter skinned people than dark skinned people, and the preference for lighter skin was to show that they were more attractive and more desirable as people as opposed to their counterparts. This ingrained the idea that the more Western one looks, thinks, and behaves, the more accepted one will be into Western or American culture. Whether they are in America or the Philippines, Filipinos are faced with effects of colonialism. America isn't safe due to the constant sign that they're not wanted, with like the signs on the door saying no Filipinos allowed. And in the Philippines, they're met with this expectation to conform to the American ideals. These innate American ideas on skin color were forced upon Filipinos, causing them to follow the same ideology. Dark-skinned individuals are uncivilized and savages, and lighter-skinned people are educated and desirable. This led colorism being apparent in Filipino culture. Now let's talk about colorism. Colorism is a form of discrimination where people with lighter skin tone will get advantages that people with darker skin tone don't have. People dark or darker skin are placed lower in the racial hierarchy than those with light or lighter skin, who are at the top of the racial hierarchy. People with lighter skin were seen as having a higher social status, which means that they are able to achieve more and be seen by more valued members of society, the more higher class, as you can say. They are also looked at as high in economic status or class. This allows them to appear more influential and powerful than darker skinned people. How these advantages come into play is like, if you really think about it, jobs will be given more to people with lighter skin because they're seen as this like more educated, more civilized. So they're better to be put into like the forefront of the Filipino society. On their counterparts, the darker skinned won't be given as many of those big opportunities and are pushed more and more back in the society. The skin color is also like a status symbol, as we said before. It is seen in the fact that Filipinos with lower status will be darker since they'll probably be working in the field, and those with higher status will be lighter since they'll be working more indoors. This is a way for others to see one's status without actually talking to them. Skin color is on the outside and is available for other people's judgment. The status symbol is another driving factor in Filipino women wanting to become lighter. Adding on top, those that are of upper class in the Philippines are mixed race. This means that women or men were capable of reproducing with people from other races. They must be mixed with white people since the only way to be a member of the upper class is to have lighter skin. This is due to the fact that their babies will be lighter in skin color, which will help the child get a step up from everyone else. These mixed race babies already have a part of the ideal beauty standards, which will show others around them all the positive connotations that being a person of lighter skin has. People with lighter skin are seen as more beautiful and more visually appealing than dark-skinned people. This is primarily due to Western ideology, where whiteness is connected to civilization. Colorism stems from colonization, which has had a great impact on Filipino life since the 1700s, the moment that the shipwrecked Filipino slaves stepped foot on American soil. This urge to fit in was then fulfilled with the introduction to skin whitening products. Skin whitening has grown in popularity due to the preconceived notions on colorism. The skin whitening market was valued at $4.8 billion in 2017 and is projected to hit $9 billion by 2027. As stated before, pale skin is associated with being privileged and having a high socioeconomic status. Meanwhile, darker skin is associated with poverty and being less affluent, educated, and being more prone to committing crimes. People didn't just want to look Western, they wanted to have the social aspects that were associated with looking Western. It is thought that if one bleaches their skin, they will have a better income, less discriminatory treatment, greater social status, or just a better life in general. In order to achieve these desired traits, one has to whiten their skin. And these skin whitening products are easily accessible in various grocery stores, markets, and pharmacies. This means that people from all levels of income can easily obtain these products, with the most popular brands being Fair & Lovely, L'Oreal, Dove, Pond's, and Procter & Gamble Co. With these products being more easily accessible for the average citizen, makes the products more desirable. Since these products are inexpensive, it means that women don't have to pay and spend a lot of money to get the many benefits that come along with the desired results. People of all incomes and social classes want these products. Low income, low social class citizens want these products to make them appear more high class and high income. Meanwhile, high income and high social class citizens want these products to appear better and more affluent than everyone else. Skin whitening itself is said to contain chemicals that decrease the concentration of melanin. This act itself comes with great health concerns that will greatly affect the person's body and life. Skin whitening is shown to be associated with mercury poisonings, kidney disorders, and dermatitis. Mercury has been used in many skin whitening products. Sometimes there will be hidden mercury content where consumers doesn't know just how much they're taking in, which could lead to mercury poisoning, including numbness, high blood pressure, fatigue, sensitivity to light, and kidney failure. Skin whitening creams can also cause nephrotic syndrome. This is a kidney disorder where the body is excreting too much protein into the urine. And since the kidney is responsible for filtering waste and excess water, kidney disorders are life-threatening. Skin whitening products have also been associated with dermatitis and inflammation, and these can also be life-threatening, and its symptoms include skin redness, skin ulcers, blisters, swelling, and itchiness. Even with all these terrifying symptoms and life-threatening concerns, women still use these skin whitening products to this day. These homemade concoctions, cosmetic products, dermatological products seem to be worth more than their lives. Skin whitening doesn't seem to discriminate between age, level of education, occupation, income, or social class. It is more about attracting a partner, looking more beautiful, solving skin problems like skin pigmentation and dark spots, stuff like that, and wanting to appear more fashionable and popular, not to mention them being deeply accepting of their colonial mentality. This risk may seem extreme, but due to the meaning and value behind it, it seems worth it for these women. Having lighter skin meant perceived as more attractive to their male counterparts, and they were seen as the members of higher class which will gain them more advantages in their daily lives. It can also just make the women themselves feel more confident in their own bodies. It is also a device for women to feel like they fit in with the rest of society, since skin lightening products are so commonly used. If the majority of the people around these women are using these skin lightening products, it brings down the riskiness since no one has suffered from these deadly symptoms. and the risk in these women's minds is worth it for all the benefits are associated with having lighter skin tone. Since the connotations around the skin color is already deep-seated in the Philippines, adults continue to spread this colonial mindset about skin color down to their kids or grandchildren. Joanne Rondilla was subjected to constant ridicule for the color of her skin by her own mother and aunts. She remembered how she thought it was necessary to smile during pictures where else she'll be just a dark blob, or the fact that she always was regarded as the dark cousin even though she wasn't all that much darker than everybody else. These were the members of her own family degrading her. This need for one to treat darker skinned people poorly seemed like it was their way of saying darker skinned people don't deserve her humanity. Rondilla learned that at an early age, skin color matters. She learned that in order for her own family to treat her the same as her other cousins was to have lighter skin. This way she would no longer be criticized and devalued as a person. Now Marie Faustus, sorry if I say that wrong, once heard her grandmother say, "You are so beautiful, it is a shame that you are so dark. No Filipino man will ever want to marry you." Faustus's own mother also participated in this fact where she would make Faustus scrub herself multiple times a night so she can have the best possibility of white skin. The grandmother, who is already plagued with this colonial mindset, passed the same ideology down to her daughter, the mother, and she in turn passed the same message down to Noelle Mary Faustus. It seems like there's no way to break free of this type of thinking when the people in one's own household is dictating the child's body and thinking. Along with her family members forcing this mindset upon Faustus, she was also told that she was not attractive enough to marry, which is the next issue at hand. Skin whitening is said to make one look more beautiful and thus more attractive to the opposite sex. Lighter skin is well connected to beauty, while dark skin is connected to being more ugly and unimportant. With this fact in mind, how could a man love someone who has darker skin? With the negative beliefs about dark skin, women are forced to think that they will never find the significant other if they themselves are dark. Skin whitening seems like the best route to achieve lighter skin and thus achieve beauty. On the male's end of this, the ideal is to bring a girl home that will impress their parents, those girls being ones with lighter skin, of course. And Noelle Marie Francis, who was mentioned before, dated this Korean boy who had said that their relationship wouldn't go anywhere due to the fact that she would never be the type of girl that a light-skinned Asian man would take home. This meant that dark-skinned women aren't the ones that a boy would consider taking home to show his parents, whereas lighter-skinned women are more desirable and considered more beautiful, who are more fit to take home to meet parents. This thought inside girls' minds aid to them wanting to purchase skin whitening products in the future and creating this endless cycle of this need for skin whitening products in order for one to feel whole. Achieving beauty isn't only to impress boyfriends, but also to raise one's own self-perception of their own beauty. Many Asians like their Asian features, however, they just wanted their features to be a little bit better, so they can be better versions of themselves. What this shows is that by skin whitening, they are achieving this level of beauty they desire themselves. At this point, it seems like there's no way in pleasing the Filipino woman. At what point is it better enough? What I mean by this is that if women are constantly chasing this thought of wanting to be better physically and chasing and wanting their futures to be a bit better, how far is too far for them to go? With this constant chase of wanting to be better, wanting to be lighter, at some point they themselves lose who they really are, just constantly chasing this thought and not focusing on anything else but this thought, and just being obsessed with their physical appearance when in reality that is not all that a person is. It's more personality and how they are as people and who they are as people, not just what they look like. And all these connotations behind lighter skin and the benefits of having lighter skin, this constant thought is never ending in their minds and them wanting to constantly chase it. And at what point will that be good enough for them? Back to the story. All around the Philippines, in advertisements, the topic of skin whitening is brought into existence. No matter where one goes in the Philippines, they're surrounded by the idea of skin whitening. With advertisements, a company selling these skin whitening products like soap or pills will put a mixed race Asian at the forefront to sell products. Due to the fact that they look racially ambiguous, women in the Philippines could identify with them since the model still looks Asian enough. At the time, this also inspires the Filipinos to want to look like the model. Companies can also go down a different route with advertisement where they pick darker skinned models who are also racially ambiguous and have this connotation of being more on the negative side. Instead of wanting their Filipino audience to inspire to look like these models, they want the Filipino audience to resent the look of these models. Companies choose captions to suggest that the model represents the consumer who are serious about brightening their skin. The model now represents inauthenticity, and if she would lighten her skin, she would appear more Asian. This has the Filipino audience thinking that if they have darker skin, it means that they aren't Asian enough for society, and in turn have to make their skin lighter to appeal to society. This act of putting the mixed race models in these campaigns does not destroy race, but lead to a deep politicization and problematization of race. Instead of featuring models with their natural tan skin, no skin whitening products, this act doesn't allow the Filipinos to appreciate their own skin color, and instead is forced to look at racially ambiguous models instead. This keeps the same connotation of skin color around and doesn't allow room for growth. Putting mixed race models on these skin whitening campaigns is a false advertisement. These models are naturally the ideal color, and by using them as models for skin whitening campaigns, the companies are giving the consumer false hope that they will ever actually get to that skin color. Using racially ambiguous models help force the consumer into identifying with the model's Asian traits, and at the same time subdue the colonial message. This colonial message being that lighter skin is attractive and strongly suggested to all Filipino women. This creates the continued cycle of Filipino women being ashamed and problematizing their own skin. Sorry if I butcher her name. Rowena Mangohig. I'm sorry. We see these skin whitening products from ads and commercials, with one of them being skin whitening lotions. Mangohig thought that this was the opportunity to achieve the desired skin. When she gave the lotion a try, she remained dark-skinned. These commercials had convinced Mangohig, these commercials had convinced Mangohig that the products will allow her to become a valued member of society. These commercials give the users a sense of hope that they will achieve the benefits, but they don't prepare the users for when it actually don't work. In fact, it isn't all that hard to believe that the topical lotion could actually change one's skin color. 41% of respondents reported little to no difference in their skin color. This means that almost half of the Filipinos who used the skin whitening products didn't see or barely saw any difference, and yet they still keep purchasing these products. These products are very harmful to the skin, and yet they're willing to risk that in order to fit the social norm that were created because of colonialist mindset. With almost half of the respondents reporting almost no difference in skin color, one has to wonder if the other half genuinely see results, or if it's all in their head, like a placebo, basically. Maybe the other 59% just thought they saw actual results, but it's just the result of them either staying out of the sun more, or if they're just getting rid of the top layer of skin, which in turn made their skin look lighter. What I mean by getting rid of the top layer of skin, some of these products can be kind of more abrasive to the skin, like in terms of like the body and stuff like that, like exfoliants and chemical exfoliants, and just physically them rubbing their skin, they're getting rid of the first layer of dead skin cells and stuff like that, which could make the skin look slightly lighter, which doesn't necessarily come from the product itself, but them physically either like rubbing their skin or exfoliating their skin. Either way, this dangerous act doesn't have the definite results as some might say. Even with all the life-threatening side effects of skin whitening, it seems that Filipino women will continue with this act. This preference for lighter skin stems from the colorism values that were in place due to the American colonialism, with lighter skin being associated with all of these positive traits and social norms. It is difficult for people to break free of the colonialistic mindsets. This never-ending flow of colorism principles being passed down has made skin whitening industries very profitable. All in all, the legacies of colonialism regarding skin color and beauty have held on Filipino culture physically and psychologically. And that is it for the actual paper itself that I've written. Yeah, that is it for today's video. This came out longer than I thought it'd be. It's like I've been filming for like an hour basically. But nonetheless, I enjoyed talking about this. I made a video on adhering to Chinese beauty standards with a makeup look, so I'll link that somewhere up there and down below as well in this description box. But this will be all for today's video. Remember to like, subscribe, and all of that shit. You know the drill, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.